kid's long gone. This old man is all that's left. I gotta live with that.
Oh, ready to kick off another one. Welcome to the Renovation Rundown. This one's going to be fun. This one's going to be super fun. Super fun. Super fun. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm Sean Thompson. Welcome to the Renovation Rundown. Hey, good to see you again as we near the end of 2026. Before I kick off with today's sort of message or content, thank you everyone for, the book, but the book was released last week, in case you don't know, the Renovation Lending Playbook. It's a buyer's guide to makeover mortgages. I hope I'm not showing this backwards, right? I hope it's in, like, actually, you can read it. It's not backwards. I hate when people do that. But, as I read through, this is the proof. See, it's got, like, the proof across. I got a couple copies that are proofs. I kind of wish it was longer. I think I'm already thinking about, sort of a revision, adding a little more context, so it's a bit of a longer read. But I think folks will appreciate how fast you can kind of get through it. It's a really good guide, so you can find it on Amazon. You just search the Renovation Lending Playbook, or you can search my name in renovation, Sean Thompson, renovation, and you'll find it, right? So thank you for supporting me and the book, and, go get a copy. Go get your own copy, right? So today's context, really, right? Today's first-time buyers are not the buyers of early 2000, right? So what I really want to talk about is dispelling some of the old myths of buying a fixer. Maybe like when your grandparents bought their house, and what buying a fixer meant then, and what it means now. Because as I just said, today's buyers are not the buyers, of the 1990s, early 2000s. They're looking at houses through, and it's a term I'm going to use over and over again here, present-day context, right? What's happening right now? What does a fixer mean right now? And all those old fixer-upper myths they were raised on don't really apply anymore, right? So I'm going to run through 7 of the biggest ones, and honestly, some of these myths need to die. They need to go away, right? And so let's start out with number 1. Fixer-uppers are unsafe and full of hidden problems, right? So back in the day, the word fixer, as I said, scared people. You imagine, like, major problems, carbon monoxide, asbestos falling from the ceiling, terrible contractors, disappearing mid-job. That just doesn't happen anymore, right? So with present day context, buyers expect imperfections. They just want to plan. How am I going to deal with it, right? And when you exhaust your savings on down payment and closing costs, it makes it very difficult to do so. So with Makeover Financing, the hidden cost fear is gone. Repairs are funded, up front. They're not afraid of old wiring. They're afraid of overpriced turnkey houses hiding even worse surprises. Remember that graph I showed you from Realtor.com? I posted, it was a couple of weeks ago. Let me see if I can find it really quickly for you. Here it is. All right, so remember this? Oh, forget about my Home Alone face. But this states that the states where quote-unquote move-in ready houses hide major problems, it's a heat map. So the redder the state, the more likely you're going to get a home built as move-in ready, and then you buy it and then there's issues, right? But look at it. It's a lot of states. I would take the burgundy ones. I mean, even the dark green ones, are in the middle of that. That heat map, right? Suggests that there's quite a few of those type of homes in there. So the point I'm trying to make is, at least showing you this graph, is in a lot of states, there are a lot of turnkey homes or homes built as move-in ready, that you don't find out until after you've closed, that you kind of got some problems, right? You kind of got some problems on that. So that was number 1. Let's move on to number 2 really quickly, is you need huge savings account to fix anything, right? So the old myth is, you better have, X amount, 50 grand saved before you even touch a fixer up, or you're going to need all this money on the side. You're going to need your down payment, and then you're going to need your renovation. Present day buyers are like, I have $8.31 in my savings account after I close, but I'm watching all of these, these homes and these improvements and, Google, YouTube, Pinterest, and, but what you can do is a renovation loan can wrap all those repairs into the mortgage. That's the new reality, right? That's the present day context, and if you really want to help entry-level buyers cozy up with the idea of owning their home affordably, this is the best deal, right? Myth number 3, move-in ready is better. All right. So I kind of touched that already. I kind of jumped the shark on the move-in ready piece, but I'll just say it again, really, move-in ready homes hide the scariest stuff, because you think you're going into it with no issues, like deferred maintenance issues, maybe a roof that might have 5 years on it and you find out that it doesn't, or an HVAC system that goes, a year after you spent all your money on down payment and closing costs. Those aren't cheap issues, those aren't cheap things. So what I will say is the as-is homes, the fixer-upper homes, the what we used to call handyman specials, they really hide the major opportunity because you can buy at a discount because of the condition, get the money to renovate it, and you keep all of that equity that investors call profit, right? And you can customize it the way you want, and you can actually find these things and put these transactions together affordably. That's the gig, right? All right, so let's move on. All right, number 4, you can't customize until years later. I don't know why that's a myth. People go into it and they go, well, I'm going to do that later. The someday maybe problem really is a kind of a big one because you go into this with wide eyes and you someday maybe your way into convincing yourself, that this is a good idea. I know it's a purple kitchen, with a hole in the floor, but someday maybe I'll get to it. I'll just live to it right now. Guess what? Someday maybe never comes, right? With this makeover financing, which you can customize from day one. Paint, flooring, layout, open walls, closed walls, redo the kitchen, redo that 1982 bathroom. I don't know what it is with the 80s, why those bathrooms are still around. Right, the pink tile with the tub that takes 2 people to lift, right? So I don't know. That's kind of crazy, right? When you think about it. So
how about no?
Right, exactly. How about no? So let's move on to number 5 here, which is fixers take forever and you'll be homeless. All right. So today's buyer understands timelines because every project that is documented, on social media. Right. So I'm not going to say projects don't go over, but when you do these, when you are a part of these makeover transactions, these loans and transactions have structured draws, scope of work, structured timelines, consultants that are involved in some cases, and a real powerful oversight, on the project itself. Right. Like I don't want to be your dad, and tell you, how to manage your contractor, but we do want to make sure that you stay on time and that you really have a good sense of what you want to do before you engage. So we really help you with that part, right? No more disappearing contractors. This is a controlled transformation. So I really want you to take that away. Number 6, banks don't finance fixers for ordinary people, right? You got to get investor loans or something like that, right? And maybe in 1980, right? But in present day context, there are tons of makeover programs designed specifically for entry-level buyers. And with my system, I have a ton of tools, to help you through this. It's never been a better time, especially with AI around the corner, or it's actually here. It's not around the corner, but it's helping in a bunch of different ways. We'll get to that in a minute in myth number 7. And that is renovations always go over budget. That's a myth to some degree, right? As I mentioned earlier, buyers are using really cool tools, numbers-based planning, renovation calculators, scope templates, cost baselines, and AI is really helping out with the estimating part. We're getting you to nail what it's actually going to cost, to do the repairs that you want. Where budgets tend to go over, what I see is where buyers continue to add things after they've already decided on what they want to do. But with renovation financing with Makeover Financing, we do include a safety net that allows you, to have a contingency in the event of a cost overrun. There's always money there to deal with those problems. And 99% of the time, customers use it, not because the budget went over, it's just because they want more things, right? So, those are the 7, right? So I don't think today's first-time buyer are terrified of imperfect homes. What they're terrified of is overpaying for the perfect ones, right? And in present day context, the imperfect house happens to be the affordable house, the customizable house, the one with the biggest upside, right? So if you really want to dig in on how Makeover Financing actually works, how to turn a needs TLC listing into your dream home, I'll ask you to go to makeoverwebinar.com, right? Check out what's going on over there. Right? And that's where I'll give you some really in-depth strategy and kind of help you through this. But my name is Sean Thompson. This has been the Renovation Rundown. I'm excited to have you guys come. And those were my 7 myths that I wanted to bury. I think it's time that we bury those myths, right? And get you on your way. All right? So Makeover Financing, Renovation Financing, find the home of your dreams in poor condition, get the money to renovate it affordably, put the 2 together, and you got something amazing. Till next time, guys. We'll see you later.